Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. Now, we are joined by the Adam Meakin, Neil, 10th Man, Eli, Refracted Curvature, Arwin, and a whole bunch of people in Gilded, so welcome one and all.
Good morning.
Good morning. Okay.
Good morning indeed.
It is. Right. I'm having some minor PC issues as I'm ironing out the creases with this new PC. So if I'm a little bit hesitant at any point during the show, just accept that there's something probably not quite right. But don't worry, we'll crack on as though nothing's happening. Any evidence of a physical geometric spheroid horizon formerly known as the curve of the Earth?
No evidence whatsoever, and it's no turning point for them because, pun intended, because if we did live on a sphere with a radius of 3959, then you would know by the elevation of the observer where Earth curve has to be, and it couldn't be any further than that. It would have to be limited based on the radius. So with the Black Swan and other proofs, just like the Black Swan, it destroys the fact that Earth is a sphere with a radius. And no one, just like when I was in the cigar shop, I said, has anyone here seen Earth curvature, whether on a plane at 30,000 feet or on the ground? And all of them said no.
Yeah, but that's because it's refraction. So you know it's curved because it looks so flat.
Yeah, I was about to add that on as well. Exactly. When you say refraction, you're saying, I apologise for how flat it looks. It's not really flat. It just looks that way because the light's bending at a presupposed R value at 7/6 of it.
Exactly.
How would you measure?
Okay.
How would you measure celestial bodies if the ground was bending?
You wouldn't. You'd need an elevation angle measurement, and that would require a flat baseline. So without a flat baseline, there is no measurement. You can only acquire these measurements from a flat Earth. Earth is flat. That's how it's measured. That's how the models have been made, including, but not limited to, the spherical heliocentric model, derived and built from flat plane elevation angle measurements. Earth's flat.
But that's exactly why terrestrial refraction works so well, because it makes everything seem flat, and that's exactly what you need to deal with the stars.
Great. Now, Nathan, repeat that thing because I'm going to give you an answer within there begging the question, which we don't like to do. But in this case, the Black Swan starts with the begging of the question. So I'm going to take it to a subject matter expert. So why did they say refraction, Nathan?
Because they're making apologies for the fact that it looks flat by claiming that the Earth has a radius value and the light is following the curve of that radius value at a rate of 7/6 of that radius value by pre-assumption.
All right. So in the Black Swan picture, the Hill House and Habitat, the platforms, I think 6.4 miles and 9 point something miles out, and the horizons behind both those at a 1 foot observer height. Where should it be if there was no refraction?
If there was no refraction?
Yeah, assume you're a baller and you're saying it's refracted. So where would it be if the atmosphere was gone? Where would it need it to be?
Well, what you're saying,
No Atmo day.
It's
No
a
Atmo
convoluted.
day.
Let me answer a convoluted question, because you say if there was no atmosphere, you're implying in physical terms we remove all the air. 7/6 of a radius value, aka terrestrial refraction, has nothing to do with air and everything to do with a readjustment of the terrain by bending the R value. Nothing to do with light, even though it's labelled terrestrial refraction. It might as well be called terrestrial elephant because it's got sod all to do with refraction. They just label it so that there's a bait and switch in place. So I'm nearly there. I'm nearly there. So because you're asking me if I'm a baller and I say refraction, I'm then having to also disclaim the bait and switch of refraction to answer your question, even though I'm a baller. Because it's not refraction, is it? It's just bending the radius value at 7/6 in standard form or any derivative that gives you a flat outlook to apologise for it. So I don't understand how I can answer your question without speaking out both sides of my mouth.
Okay, let me give you
radius or extending the radius?
hang,
I was just asking.
Guys,
I know, but there's a flow here that I want to keep. All right, so subject matter expert Andrew Thomas Young says if you do not have an atmosphere, it's 1.22 miles times the square root of the observer's height and so on. But if we apply refraction, it's 1.32 miles. Now, again, if we're quoting their subject matter expert, and he's saying, now I know you perfectly describe 7/6R versus actual refraction, but if he's saying at 1 foot with refraction, it's got to be at 1.32, and without refraction, meaning no atmo day, it's 1.22. We still have the black swan that shows the platforms at 6.41 and 9 point something, and the horizons beyond that. So even their own answer fails them, if you follow what I'm saying.
Yeah, what you're saying is, if you assume that air is sphere-shaped, which it isn't, and that the light that is air that's sphere-shaped is removed, then we're left with a geometric tangent point horizon at 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet. However, if we reinstate the sphere-shaped air in order to justify bending the radius at 7/6 of the radius to flatten out the terrain for this apology that we're going to make for how flat it looks, then that mathematics that has nothing to do with air but I've bait and switched you to make you think it is, puts the horizon at 1.3 miles out as opposed to beyond a 6 and 9 mile oil platform. Therefore, even with their apologetics and their terrestrial refraction at the rate that's standard, it doesn't bring them in any way close to justifying or apologising for how flat it is when the horizon's beyond those two oil rigs. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Now let me just round it off. And so then when we show Andrew Thomas Young saying all of my refraction calculations were done from a flat plane, and then say, full stop. And then he says, but the earth isn't flat, exclamation point. So we're going to do some geometric considerations. He pretty much admitted to you that everything he got was from a flat plane. So where's the 7/6R?
Well, after he apologises for the earth having a spherical value and making the air sphere-shaped using that value, and then claiming that light is a ray travelling in an orthographic view from target to observer, he has to claim that the bait and switch part of it is actually in some way related to the refraction that he can observe in reality. And when he does, he has to do the calculations and observations based on flat plane observations as opposed to spherical Earth observations. So while he's making these apologetics, they're only apologetics for the bait and switch part of the process, which is to say that terrestrial refraction's got nothing to do with the refraction he studied on a flat plane. But what we should focus on the fact that he studied the refraction on a flat plane, and perhaps in the mind's eye of other people who attack this argument, ignore the fact that what he's actually using at 7/6 of the radius has nothing to do with what he measured on a flat plane or otherwise.
What?
7/6 of a radius value has got nothing to do with the measurements he took and disclaimed he took off a flat plane. It's part of the bait and switch. Inside this suitcase is refraction, real refraction, measured on a flat plane refraction. Okay, we all clear? We're dealing with light bending through mediums, traversing mediums, deviating from straight, refracting. We all clear what's in this suitcase? Refraction, real refraction on a flat plane. Oh, look over there for a second. Right, I'm just going to slam this suitcase, open this other suitcase. Check it out. So we're all clear that this has got refraction in it. I'm going to close this suitcase with 7/6 of a radius value in it. That wasn't the suitcase that you just looked at, measuring stuff off a flat plane or otherwise. That was a different suitcase. The suitcase I've just closed and handed to you has got 7/6 of a radius in it.
I don't see the problem as Baldwin.
You don't see the problem.
Kent is saying if you allow the apologetics of 7/6R, it's still not sufficient for the mismatch in the supposed geometry of a ball Earth. And as far as I can see, Nathan's saying that supposed apologetics isn't even applicable to what you're saying it's applied to allow it.
Correct.
Yeah, well, I mean, literally, they used 7/6R to explain why not enough building was missing or hidden behind the geometric horizon. Now we're talking about refraction moving the horizon. I don't get it.
Moves all over the place. You know, when there's a lot of moisture in the air, the Earth will just look more like it really is. The horizon will seem closer and things are obscured behind it because the terrestrial refraction is kind of like limited because of all the extra moisture in the air. That's like, is it like Poncho Train, right? Makes it look more like it really is.
Okay,
except
let's just
even smaller.
stop Arwin before he gets too into this role. So what Arwin's doing intentionally, I hope, is convoluting the line between looking at a building on the left-hand side of a page and then drawing a curve between you and it and having the curve with you on the, whatever I said the opposite to, left-hand side of the page, if I said right, you on the opposite side of the page, looking at it in an orthographic view. So obviously you don't ever see the side of your own head, but that's what this maths is being done with, orthographic representations. Arwin's blurring the line between terrestrial refraction in an orthographic view and how it will block boats and buildings and what goes on in the air itself when you're looking at things. The two are not the same. So how much the light bends in an orthographic view at 7/6 of a radius is you seeing the side of your own head and seeing the side of the target you're claimed to be looking at. But you're not looking at it, you're looking at the side of it and the side of your own head, and then bending a line between the two at 7/6 of a radius of a circle at 3959 miles. That's what you're actually doing. Sod all to do with light and how it behaves in air. Arwin, as I say for the third time, is intentionally, I hope, blurring those lines to demonstrate the bait and switch. Now, if you want to,
importantly,
go on.
I'm just going by what I learned from Rumpus in 2017.
Yeah, what Rumpus did was blur those lines. He was baiting and switching between the two. Go ahead, Adam.
the bit I certainly that took time to catch on was, more importantly, we're conflating an orthographic view with how we see with a lens in perspective. And we're mismatching those measurements of perspective with geometry when we transfer.
And also the 27/6 part with respect to the horizon.
Yes, that's correct. It's the target that's refracted with respect to the horizon until you get to Andrew Thomas Young, not disclaimed, when they're trying to claim that there's a physical geometric limitation to your view called Earth curve blocking a boat or a building in the distance, and the 7/6 of the radius values bending the light with respect to the horizon. However, when the horizon's beyond the limitations of a geometric horizon at 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet, they have to apologise and refract the horizon also, meaning they no longer have any geometry to base this assertion on. It destroys the entirety of the model, because you've no longer got a concrete base to get the R value to bend the light with respect to that R-based horizon that's supposed to be Earth curve blocking things in the distance. And then, oh, well, it's not quite blocked or blocked a bit too much, so we'll bend the light at the rate of the radius with respect to the horizon. Anyway, I want to explain what the debate, just before we move on. The bait and switch, right? So go and watch a movie called Matchstick Men, which is all about con artists. And one of the specific cons, they get the mark to believe that he can change a currency and make 10 times the money that he puts in. So initially he starts small, he gives the con men about $1,000, and the con men genuinely go to the bank and take out 10 grand in a different currency and give it to him. Then the guy ups the ante. You know, he does it with 10 grand. So then they've got to really up the ante and go and get 100 grand of real money to give him, so he walks away with 10x what he thinks he's going to get. Then he does what is actually the swindle. This is where the bait and switch comes in. They arrange to have the exorbitant, whatever it is, $1 million, just for ease of numbers, in the suitcase, so that they can show him a huge wad of money because he's going to give them, or is going to exchange. They're going to exchange briefcases. One that's got 10 times less the amount that they're going to swap over. So they show him the suitcase with all this money, flicks through it. It's all genuine. It's all there. It's an absolute shed load of cash. But then his partner in crime, the con man's partner in crime, causes a little distraction. And they've already set up a different suitcase on the pew that they're sat on in this airport where the exchange is taking place, just behind him. So he's practiced the move over and over again where he reaches behind him, grabs the completely different suitcase with fake paper in, and puts the real money right behind him. So then when they cause a kerfuffle and the guy turns around just for a moment, he closes the suitcase with the real money in and puts the suitcase with the fake money in, just a couple of notes on top. So as he turns back around and the suitcase closes, he just glances the top notes that aren't, the top of lots and lots of money. Close the suitcase, do the exchange, they walk off into the distance having swindled him. They've got both suitcases with all the money, and the bait and switch is complete. Well, that's directly comparable to describing how the light will bend, if you want to put it in really dumbed down terms, how light refraction is actually demonstratable. Cut to a video of somebody releasing a very inert gas on a barrel with some plasticine models behind it, and watch them dropping below the barrel, the curve of the barrel. So they induce a transition, i.e. Snell's law takes effect, the light changes direction effectively, it's no longer moving in a straight path, and its deviation from straight is noticeable as the gradient increases as you increase the gas between you and the thing you're looking at in physical reality, with a camera, with your eyeball. So you see it sinking behind the barrel. Great. That's your suitcase with $1 million in it, because that's refraction in action, on tape, like you viewed it with your own eye, akin to because you've taken a video of it. Then cause a little distraction, maybe tell somebody that they're an idiot, or whatever distraction's required to get that suitcase closed and reopen a different suitcase that's got Muppet vision, seeing the side of your own head, absolutely sod all to do with how things look, 7/6 of a terrestrial radius value with a sphere Earth and bendy sphere-shaped air around it. Just as you, whatever distraction's been caused, get your attention back on the person selling you what you thought was light bending to move the plasticine, they close the suitcase on 7/6R and hand it to you. And then you've got a suitcase with globe-based Muppet vision refraction that's sod all to do with anything you ever see ever, and it can't be, because you'll never see the side of your own head for the maths in the suitcase that you're walking off into the distance with. So while I've elaborated on this to a massive extent, it's because Arwin's very good at blurring the lines, like a baller was here. He gets a lot of compliments as well for anybody who moans about Arwin, which they do. Anyone who's brilliant and gets close to the bone is going to annoy people. That's just how it is. But Arwin is the quintessential perfect baller. He knows how to put the argument in such a manner. He says, I'm just repeating rumpus. Well, you've paid attention to the rumpus then, haven't you? Enough to be able to replicate how he bait and switches people with terrestrial versus actual refraction. I thank you.
Right,
10th, go ahead.
It's also
Oh, sorry.
also
10th was in the wings,
I
Arwin. I know I addressed you in that, but 10th's been waiting. Can you just let him give way? Go ahead, 10th.
So I love the summary. I love that we're spending time on this, because when they first said, when we know it's in respect to the horizon, then they said the horizon is being refracted. They still have a big problem on their hand, because Andrew Thomas Young said that then that horizon could be no further than 1.32 miles. So, but we still have the black swan showing well over 9 miles. So even if they make an error of that magnitude, you say, okay, so now you're saying that the horizon is being refracted? Okay, well, according to your subject matter expert, that should be at 1.32 miles, which is nonsense. But if you're going to die on nonsense, why is it well over 9 miles? So they still end up losing the argument.
You know what? That's interesting, because
Hold on,
especially
hold on,
being in
Eli. Hold on. Just let Arwin go now. Then Eli. Go ahead.
oh, my
Arwin.
bad, Owen. Go ahead.
Right. Well, I was going to elaborate a bit on like how I do it, right? How do I do that switch? Well, I do it completely subconsciously, because when I actually engage in Baldwin thinking, I believe it. I believe it from a baller perspective, right? So I don't intend to lie or fool. I just have to believe something that's a bit of a stretch because it works so well. And that's what I basically engage in. So to me, when I said like, yeah, but no terrestrial refraction's there because sometimes it does look like a ball, that's something that ballers would actually say in that time period when we wouldn't figure out the black swan argument and all that yet.
And the two words in there are
Genuinely
look.
believe that.
Morning,
The
guys.
two words in there were looks like, because it doesn't look like 7/6i. It can't look like, but that's the bait and switch aspect. Go ahead. Who was it? Eli? Go ahead.
Yeah, even like going to Jim Panders and Panders, Panderer. The thing is, they all concede. No, it's not 7/6R. It's extreme refraction. We've told you this before, and yada 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 yada.
Super
So okay,
mega looming.
so they try to justify a begging the question with Andrew Thomas Young, but there's parameters. It's like, what is the justification for anything beyond that? Like, what's the actual argument? I don't get it. Like, there's no math to it. There's literally nothing other than them saying it's extreme refraction.
Extreme refraction. What was it that
Super
one guy
mega
said?
looming.
What was it? Refraction of a special kind or something like that?
Yeah.
There's
Like,
infinite
really?
refraction.
Well, if
Nobody
Earth has a
remembers the
radius-
super mega looming?
It's extreme looming non-standard refraction.
if Earth has a radius and it's curving, why would they have to apply the Haversine formula to it?
Can you
Well,
explain what that
as
means?
long as you're not standing on the corner with your briefcase, with your Haversine formula, on the same corner that I'm standing with my trench coat, my geometric horizon inside. Don't take my corner.
John, can you explain that? Why are you bringing that up? What is the Haversine formula?
It's a transformative equation. It changes something into something else. If you're measuring a sphere, why are you changing it into what? What are you changing it into?
Mumra.
Or to link it, if you've got 7/6 of the radius, aka standard refraction or terrestrial refraction, well, if the light's bending around a spherical surface, why is it necessary to perform a transformative equation to spherical if it's already spherical?
Yeah, I like that formulation of it.
Basically, Eli, that what they're doing, and you can read on this and see illustrations. The PCX navigational triangle that they'd like to use, which is based on the Haversine, as John explained, is a formula that brings in quote unquote spherical trigonometry for them. So in order for the observer's GP and the star's GP, and those lines go to the center of the Earth in all these illustrations, to have an arc that they meet on, and for the math to work. This is what John is talking about. So they take an angle with an angle measuring device called a sextant. It's two straight lines meeting at a vertex where the observer is. And then they want to say that I'm really on the arc where above me, my zenith, and above the star, GP, the star, that curved Earth that they want to draw every time, that dingleberry, that's the formula to make that happen. But that's not what's happening.
So I'm gonna ask the most award-winning question for the ballers. Is the Haversine formula necessary?
That's a good question.
Isn't it? I'm scared of the answer. Don't
No.
fucking disappoint me.
No. We've been fishing, Eli. We've been fishing for a really concise way of putting this. And is the Haversine formula necessary? That's about as concise as you can get that question, I would say. It doesn't contextualize it enough, but it's pretty damn concise.
It is for the ball.
Well, if it was already a ball, it wouldn't be necessary. So
No,
No, that's great. Hold on, Eli.
it-
Hold on. Give him credit. If the Earth is a sphere, or how did you say it, Chocolate? Say just add on the two parts. You say it.
I said, well, his question was, is the Haversine formula necessary? Well, they're only applying it for the ball, right? So if it was a ball already, it wouldn't be necessary because it's already a ball.
Okay. So the question becomes: is the Haversine formula necessary if the Earth is a sphere? Copyright Nathan Oakley. I'm calling it. That's mine.
I don't know. I don't like it. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. No. Wait a minute. Well, if I was a baller, I would be saying no. When you use the Haversine formula because you need to, because it's actually a sphere, that's when you get all the accurate values.
What, measurements of a sphere? That's when you get all the accurate sphere measurements to do the angle measurements with? No, you do not.
Yeah, you got to transform measurements from a sphere to a sphere. That doesn't make sense. Does it?
So then that's what I'm. So it goes back to my question. Since it's a plane, then is the Haversine necessary for us? Like, or in general, is it necessary, or is it just a product of the argument?
If you
Eli,
want to make it work in the flat Earth celestial sphere model, it's necessary. That's not dependent upon reality, though. That's just a model too.
Eli, if you're a baller or an anti-flat earther, and you have a tool that could only measure angles, and we define what an angle is, two straight lines being a vertex. The only place that could ever happen is the equatorial plane. That's why they cut the Dingleberry in half and say all the measurements in the nautical almanac derive from here. Now, you say, well, if all the measurements derive from there, who in the world with a section is at the middle of the Earth on an equatorial plane with the globe sliced in half? You know, a great circle, a disk that's flat, basically. Well, nobody. We're on the surface. We need a formula so we can prove we're on the surface doing this and not on the plane.
Let's ask the question.
The surface that we're pretending
I'm
is
almost
flat.
Hold on. Let me just ask the question. Is there any evidence that you can acquire an elevation angle measurement from a curved surface?
Impossible. So they came up with a transformative formula equation, which John has really eloquently described, and also Brian. And what they do is they transform it that it's the arc of the sky. So if you think of a protractor, the arc part of it, they make that the inner, well, it's a twofold thing now. They make that the inner, let me finish.
No, I get it now.
I know, but let me finish for the audience. They make that a twofold thing. One, if you project it to the celestial sphere, which is imaginary, it's the inner concave surface that has that same arc. Then it's reprojected down over that equatorial plane, that great circle, as a globe, 2 points on that arc.
Okay.
Why do that is what Chocolate is saying, if you already live on the sphere.
I've got bad news. Just had an update from Brian's logic. He says that the phraseology that I came up with, he came up with 2 weeks ago. So,
which was stolen from Arwen and
telepathically.
What?
Yes.
No.
Any evidence of the R value? That's Earth radius.
Well, they have a 25-letter alphabet now because we took away their R.
I think it's still trust in it and believe in it.
Well, there's loads of evidence, but it all comes from elevation angles off a flat level baseline.
Nathan, I put a picture in Master Debater just to finish up the point. Sorry, One Deck.
Did we do axial rotation already?
No,
Did I miss that?
we know it. We're on to the third question. It's up 10th.
Okay,
Well, that's usually the second.
So for the audience and whoever else can see this diagram, measurement of the celestial sphere. So that big outside circle is the imaginary celestial sphere. Now you could see where the angle is deriving from. Okay, it's a great circle. It's the equatorial plane. They don't show the Earth in here, but where that vertex is, if you see Z, and it goes all the way down to the equatorial plane, and then M, where the star is, okay, well, that's an angle there. And the zenith distance is the distance to the GP of that star from the GP of the observer, who's got the vertical right there. But you could see the baseline is on the disk equatorial plane, and that's 90 degrees. That's why you subtract from 90 the elevation angle. But what's interesting in this picture is that they put a parallel altitude, a small circle, and the stars on that small circle. Now remember, this is out in space in their model, and it's that star is attached to the inner surface of a made-up celestial sphere, and it's the concave. You see that concave angle there? That's called their vertical circle. They just reproject this down and create a globe there. But there was never a globe there. That's the Haversine formula.
That's a really good picture, this one. Doesn't
Yeah,
make it as
it's-
easy for you to just think like, oh, no, I'm looking at a globe, right? No, not with this one.
Well, you don't even see the globe in this one, but it's
Good.
where the vertex is.
Now, this is very good because, as Arwen says, you can easily show how you've got the arc of the protractor through the top with that black line. What's it labelled as? Celestial sphere. So where it says celestial sphere, that's your essentially your protractor, right? That's your marked off. You could mark all the angles off.
Mm-hmm.
So you can easily describe this. You can see the flat plane that you'd be standing on. It's nice and simple. But then you can say, now if you colour in the outside edge that says celestial sphere as a globe, you can understand how this would work. Although technically that's not strictly true, because this would end up being a dingleberry, wouldn't it? It would be at the centre. It would be about where this is. It a number 6 where it says E. Well, for east, yeah, right. Where it says E, that would be where they draw in an extra spherical part of the model.
I'll get you a picture that shows it the way they reify it. Right now, it's not reified. Right now, what they're doing is they're showing the Earth we live on, that great circle, the disk. That's where we live on, that big shaded area. That's where the angles are all coming from. And then they draw only the celestial sphere where they attach the star to the inner concave surface. And then it's reprojected down, but they don't show what it's reprojected down. This is a tell. This is saying, look at the azimuth is always north in the clockwise motion. So they got an azimuth working on a flat disk. They've got you seeing only the imaginary celestial sphere, so they have to make it that a sphere, okay? But they forgot to put the Earth there. Let me get a picture that shows their reification. I'll be right back.
I don't know what question's most appropriate to ask while he's looking for that. We'll ask something totally unrelated or semi-unrelated. Any evidence that you can have gas pressure without the necessary antecedent of a container to press upon?
Nah. You even require a container to create a vacuum because naturally it doesn't happen. Nature abhors a vacuum.
Interesting, that picture, because it's the top half's wrong, isn't it? It's trying to express two concepts.
Yeah, I caught that.
Yeah. So if you look at where the star is at point M, what it's claiming is that top circle, the parallel of altitude. If you think about that within the diagram and combine that with reality, the star is going to be lower, hence why you've got the angle.
It's
so
on the
that
horizon.
parallel of altitude
It's on
isn't
the
a
horizon.
parallel of altitude. Yeah, it's only a parallel of altitude in the mathematics. So, because you can see it's curving anywhere on that protractor, it's curving, isn't it? The altitude's increasing as you get to your zenith. So that point M would not be on the same, in that diagram, you can see it's physically lower. It's got a lower angle, it's not 90. So to draw out that parallel kind of contradicts where it is, but it's not, because you're trying to grasp the fact that distance is drop in angle.
Right.
Because everything's on that parallel of altitude. Even the star that you see at 10 degrees just above the horizon is on that parallel of altitude, started at the zenith.
Sure, but if they were to represent this accurately, you'd have a second depiction of M up at the same angle. So what Adam's saying is, if your position is here where my mouse is now, you've got this angle out along the plane of the surface that you're standing on up to the star at M. Whereas if you take the parallel of altitude up here, this circled disk, and you're standing at, let's say, Z, because it's not actually marked, but as close as damn it. If you're standing at Z, the stars on the horizon, if this is to be considered a plane that you could stand on, it's no longer at whatever this is, 50 degrees, something like that. Or it's at, what, 90 degrees? It's on the horizon in this parallel of altitude. The only place it actually makes any sense is at the centre of this grey disk, because that's where the actual angle to it is coming from and being measured. So that's your position where you'd actually stand holding a sextant, looking at the star and seeing where it is in the sky in relation to your horizon, as opposed to parallel of altitude. Now, if you were to actually depict this, he's kind of making a bit of globe topology to do so, but they have similar diagrams. It might be one that we get in a moment, where you have a second parallel angle coming from that they'll just claim that can be transposed down when it has a globe burger in the middle. Actually, we'll move on to that now, as that's what this diagram is, what I was trying to drive at. So you've got the outside edge being the circle that represents your view if you cut it in half. So this is what you end up with. And then that gives you the angle, that's your protractor. And then the globe Earth is just stuck in the middle of what was the celestial sphere on the other diagram. This is a good little GIF. Like it. Did you want to add anything to this 10th, as it's presumably you that's posted it?
Which one are you looking at?
The animated one. The animated one.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I see it. Okay. Yeah, that's like, so there's your celestial sphere, the big gray circle. And then you've got, in this image, the Earth inserted, whereas in the previous image, only you saw that equator, which would be the equatorial plane. So you do realize that we do live on the irregular plane, and all angle measurements are done from it, and everything is based off sea level. That's why the horizon and dip correction is to get your eyeball on the sea level. Now, how they trick you is once you do that, they say that that's zero. When you get it eye level on sea level, that's zero. And they tie that into the equatorial plane, which is really where you are, but they call it equatorial plane when they cut the Earth in half. And then they extend that to the celestial sphere, which is called the celestial horizon. With it just keeps going, okay? But where the two meet is called the equinoctial. So in this previous picture, the one that we first saw, without the Earth there in the middle, if you put an Earth there in the middle, if you just go to some of the slides I sent you, you'll see it. I don't know which ones you're showing at the moment, but go to Master D and you'll see a bunch more.
I'm on top of it. I'm keeping up with what you're saying. Don't worry.
Okay, well, you can just, well, which one are you on? Just tell me that.
At the moment, I'm on the main one, which is the first one we covered. That's pretty much the best one so far. Not best, but you know what I mean, most appropriate for the discussion. So I'm flicking back to that one. I'm currently on it now.
Okay, so let's just go from there and I'll round it up. So the first one that you're on shows it without a globe reification where the angles are measured from. It doesn't show the globe there. It just shows the celestial equator from the center of an Earth that's not there, just extending all the way out. Go to the next one, you'll see the GIF, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so now go through the GIF and you'll see this one is showing you, okay, what if we do put a globe there? And well, we still need that equator, which was in the previous picture where all the angles are coming from. So the dingleberry is really not necessary. Okay. So then if you go, once you're done with that, to the next picture, you could see the same thing here. And it shows the globe in the middle with an equator line and the zenith distance going to the center of the Earth. And then you got celestial sphere around it. All right. Well, what is the next one after that? Next one after that would be an airplane getting the same angle as the person on the surface of this reified globe Earth once you get to sea level and get a 90, which happens to match the celestial horizon, which is the equatorial plane, reaching past the Earth all the way to the celestial sphere, which is imaginary. So you got 3 lines. They're all horizontal. And if you say, well, where's the angle coming from? Well, the books say it's coming from the center of the Earth. Well, because sunlight, we assume, is coming in parallel, then all the angles are the same. And whether you're 5 miles up or on the surface of the water, eye level after dip correction, flat, 0, all these are 0. The horizontal is always the 0 line. Well, where do they have it emanating from? The equatorial plane, which is what we live on. This top half of this hemisphere and the bottom half don't belong there. Go to the next one. You could see this one showing many things, but it shows the celestial sphere, and then you could see that PZX navigational triangle to the right side of it. So it's projected out to the inner concave surface and then reprojected back on Earth by the Haversine formula. Go to the next one. It's the one that's blue. This one's really cool because it shows the celestial sphere and all the stars stuck underneath. And then it shows the Earth's equator, terrestrial equator, meeting with the celestial horizon, which extends all the way to the celestial sphere. And at that point, it's called the equinoctial. And you can see right here, all the angles must come from that disk that extends from the Earth all the way to the celestial sphere, so flat plane. Next slide. Celestial concepts. This has some cool imagery. Look at this, the bottom right, that one yellowish one. So that's the Haversine right there being projected back down. If you look right above it, you'll see the white celestial sphere with the latitude, longitude lines on the outside and the stars on the inside. That's how they talk about it. And then you see that has to be projected down to those 2 red dots that create the arc. So there's their spherical trigonometry that the Haversine gives them. But where's the angle vertex emanating from? Obviously, 0, an equator, the equatorial plane. This is all the trickery they go through. If you go to the next slide, or of course, this was the best one. This is what they say they're doing from the surface of the Earth, getting a right angle triangle and doing the subtraction from 90 from the elevation angle and getting a zenith distance. The only problem is this can only happen from the equatorial plane. Or if the equatorial plane is really the Earth, you just do the top hemisphere and bottom hemisphere just to fool us then, because this is what's happening. Because you can't get an angle from a curved surface. And yet this is from a navigation site. It's embarrassing. And the last one is really cool because it shows the celestial sphere. Okay. It shows north celestial pole matches with the north pole directly underneath. It shows the angle from the center of the Earth, the plane we live on. And then it extends through all the way to the celestial sphere. And then it's reprojected down in the same arc of an inside concave sphere and made it to be the top of a sphere that they tell us we live on. There's your Haversine doing all that transformative equation just to fool you because angle measurement kills them.
This is the best diagram to starkly contrast the original diagram. Unfortunately, I have to flick through a few others to get to it. But this is a great depiction because it's got this sort of faded grey circle called celestial sphere. And then you've got obviously the primary focus, the nice colourful globe Earth in the middle. And then the diagram showing where does the angle originate. Well, it's nice and labelled, centre of Earth. So you can see how this is the depiction of an angle measurement from the centre of Earth that you're not standing out to the celestial sphere. Well, okay, so the angle's going to be taking place from here. Well, is there a better diagram that shows us exactly what that means? Well, yeah, this is the centre. Here's your flat plane that you actually stand on and hold the tool to measure the angle to the star. And what do you know? We've got it marked in a very similar fashion. Celestial sphere with a black line all the way around the edge. And the greyed area being what you're standing on to measure this angle, because that's the only way you can measure it. Even in the globe diagram, they've got it on the outside edge of your angle measurement to the celestial sphere. The globe Earth bit in the middle is redundant. It's not even redundant, it's surplus to requirements. It's not needed in any way, shape or form, so long as you can measure from the centre point. In fact, putting a giant spherical rock in the way of where you need to stand to measure this angle very much causes problems, because you can't stand at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth to measure this angle. What you can do is stand on a flat plane, hold a tool for measuring an angle and look at a star with it. And that's what this diagram represents. No surplus to requirement globe in the middle of this diagram, because it's surplus to requirements. It's not needed or helpful. Excellent string of slides, by the way. Thank you, 10th.
Welcome.
I didn't get a chance to mention it.
John first. Sorry, Chocolate. It's not because you're black.
That's right. Now I got to follow that. I didn't get a chance to mention it earlier, but I wanted to thank the person who pointed out the Haversine, I guess it would be a logical conundrum for the globe, and that's Ruhif. He's a really good guy pointing that out to me.
Well done.
I missed the point. Sorry. What did he point out to you? I was concentrating on a button not working.
Oh, the law of Haversine, how he needs to apply that to get his globe.
Then maybe we should direct it towards Ruhif. If the Earth's a sphere, why do you need to apply Haversine?
I didn't know John was black.
No, I said chocolate. Chocolate can wait in the wings for a moment, and it's not because he's black. It's because I heard John first. I was accused in the comments of always relegating Chocolate to the back of the queue because he's black. I'm like, number one, I am also black, so that's totally unreasonable. And number two, Eli's always put at the front of the queue, so it's just pure favoritism. I just don't like Chocolate.
I didn't even know Chocolate was black.
I'm not black. I'm chocolate.
Good Chocolate. Anyway, jokes aside.
All right. So, before because I know the show's about to end in a little bit, but before you, because you said we didn't do axial rotation yet, and I have a thing about that, and I also posted a audio clip in Master D that relates to that, because I want to relate this to the really is level. So
Okay.
if you could play that. And
Do you want me to ask the question first?
yeah, if you want.
Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety? Chocolate, what say you?
Hold on a second. I got work. Hold on.
Reference frames ruined. We wouldn't expect to see any
No,
deviation. It's all relative.
Chocolate, what were you talking about? Which argument or what you said you destroyed me?
Correct me if I'm wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong, Kosho. But you once declared that the rotating hurricanes were actually going in a straight line. They just appeared to rotate because we were on a rotating reference frame.
It's 100% true that the winds are going in a straight line.
And
there's no reason for them to travel.
I wasn't lying,
There's no
guys.
reason for them to travel in a circle on their own. So the Earth is rotating. But when they start off their travel, they're going north or south, depending on. So the high pressures are going to go towards the south.
Say winds all go in straight line.
It's 100% true that the winds are going in a straight line.
Okay. Chocolate's been called away to work, so his point that he wants to make.
I'm back.
Oh, okay.
I'm back. My boss has the worst freaking timing. I'm all alone by myself for freaking 20 minutes. As soon as I want to talk, everyone shows up. Okay. So you just played the clip, right? And obviously, the reason that he made that statement was because I asked why does a hurricane, and just to relate this to the really is level, we currently have a hurricane happening, right? Not too far from where I live. So the past couple of days, I've been, listening to news and just paying attention to this, right? And I keep coming back to this very argument because, as you heard, we were told that hurricanes 100% move in a straight line, when that's never, ever, ever depicted. And that literally goes against what a hurricane actually is. But, and I'm not trying to pick on Kosho in any way with this, but it shows you that certain arguments will have people say things that are completely against reality. Now, it's not that he's a stupid guy, because he understands that he had to respond that way. It's kind of like the guy that said that the planes are traveling backwards. It's not that that guy thinks that planes are traveling backwards. It's that that's the response that has to be if their claim is correct. So my question kind of is and this is mostly for like the Globers, really, like the people who argue with us and don't like us or whatever. Do you think that that's reality? Do you think that a hurricane is a storm where winds are moving 100% in a straight line? Or do you disagree with it and just think that that's something that a Glober just said, just spewed out his mouth because he had to in order to salvage his argument, right? Because we know that, the response itself is ridiculous because, as I said, hurricanes are always depicted from the inertial reference frame, right? The satellites, the high altitude balloon footage, all that crap, right? Whatever you want to call it, that's the inertial reference frame. So if what you're saying is true, Kosho, or whoever Glober thinks that hurricanes move straight, that's where we would see it. We do not. So my question is, again, is that reality? Is that something that you can agree with? Or is that just some nonsense that a Glober spewed because that's what he has to salvage the model?
Asked and answered. So you've explained that they have to go there by their logic. So if you're going to claim that, as claimed in Wiki and by Tyson and various others at various stages of their doublespeak, that hurricanes are an effect of Coriolis, and then you break down to them that that effect is not actual, i.e. it's an effect where you observe something that's actually moving straight appear to curve because you're turning beneath it, a la a ball tossed over the top of a roundabout while you're rotating beneath it will appear to take a curved path even though it's moving straight. Well, if you say, well, hurricanes or winds in general, they're a Coriolis related effect because I've seen it on Wiki, and you go, okay, so you're suggesting that we're rotating under the winds, making them look like they're moving in a circular hurricane-like pattern, when in fact they're traveling straight and it's the not actual curved path that we're seeing from the ground because we turn beneath. That's what they have to say if they assert that winds in any way, shape or form are connected to Coriolis effect, because the winds would have to be moving straight and only appearing to take a curved path if we're claiming that Earth's turning beneath them to cause Coriolis deflection. Therefore, the logic dictates that they are moving straight then, because we're rotating beneath them on a turning Earth and seeing them seem to go round and round. They're not really going round and round, they're going straight. So that's why he has to go to that nonsense, because he can't help but do it when he employs the logic that Coriolis is connected to winds, which it isn't.
What they're doing there, unfortunately, to balance that conundrum, is creating two reference frames. Now, if you create two reference frames, wind's moving one way and the Earth's rotating another to give the appearance of Coriolis, then the Earth's rotating underneath the wind. It's no longer in lockstepness with the rotating Earth, so flights from LA to Charlottesville would be shorter.
Right. That's what
Plus-
Coriolis
plus
is.
your depictions, of an apparently deviating hurricane would come from the non-inertial reference frame. That would be the ground.
But
So,
in
yeah.
making that claim, you generate two reference frames, don't you? Which is something they like to avoid because of the flight routes. But to do that for the winds, you have to then separate the reference frames to observe the Coriolis effect as you rotate.
The same
underneath.
ones that were ruined.
Yeah, no.
those reference
Let
frames?
me just highlight where Adam's going because I want to keep it nice and concise. Good point, Adam. What Adam's saying is typically they'll avoid at all costs the notion of Earth turning beneath anything because it's easily shown to not be occurring, we'd notice. But in this instance, because it's slightly ambiguous with wind, there's a claim that in line with Coriolis effect and the globe Earth turning beneath stuff to see it seem to curve, we're seeing wind seem to curve because we're turning beneath it. Ergo, nonsensical as it sounds, the wind's actually travelling straight. But in order for him to make that nonsensical, crazy-ass assertion, he has to employ two reference frames. Earth turning beneath the seeming to curve wind that's actually moving straight. Well, actually moving straight in the inertial reference frame as we observe it seem to curve according to him as we turn beneath. Well, in that claim, he's got Earth turning beneath, which is actually the claim, just like the fact that Adam's shocked that an anti-flat earther like Kosho would employ any argument for a globe Earth turning that utilises two reference frames, because we go, okay, so Earth's turning underneath the wind then? Well, that's definitely going to shorten a flight time from Charlotte, North Carolina to Los Angeles to about an hour and a half, because Earth's turning underneath the plane that's travelling through the wind, shortening its flight time. Definitely not the case winds just travel in circles, but an actual circle trajectory isn't anything to do with Coriolis unless you're in it. So unless you're moving around and around like Dorothy in the hurricane, you're not going to observe things seem to drift because you're turning. You've got to be in the hurricane to have it have anything to do with Coriolis effect. Unless you're in the hurricane, it's just something turning that you observe actually turning. Coriolis is not actual turning because you turn beneath, which is what the globe actually claims. Just like I say, shocking that Kosho would even attempt to bring in a second reference frame because it's so easy to undo with a flight. Thank you, Adam. Who was it that was trying to get in on after the fact? Was it you, Arwin?
No.
Someone else was trying to get in there as well while Adam was making the end of his point, or I reiterated it. Was nobody going to stand up? No, nobody.
No, I was just. All I had to say is we wouldn't expect to see any deviation. It's all relative. The stars are spinning, and we don't notice any motion, and that's it.
But the stars are spinning is just an apparent, regardless of who or what your position is. The stars do apparently move in a circular fashion. The assertion is that Earth's turning beneath to cause that circular motion. That's Coriolis effect. You know, the straight up, simplistic as it gets, we're supposed to be on a turning Earth, and that causes the motion of the stars. Well, if that's the case, we're turning beneath them, in line with the claim of Coriolis.
Turns with it and all that, so.
Say again?
Nathan?
Hold on.
Yeah, let me just...
Hold on, just
Okay,
Arwin started something now. Go on, Arwin. You're saying, but the wind what?
Everything, no, because it's relative, thanks to Einstein's discovery, the Earth and everything on it, including the gas that will stick to it because of bending of space-time, it will just rotate and everything will just stay as it is, and we won't notice any motion because it's all relative. And so, yeah, that's why it all moves in lockstep, or seems to. And it seems to us on Earth that the universe outside, the giant universe, is spinning around us, but it is actually us that is spinning. But because it's all relative, we don't notice.
Yeah, but meanwhile, the globe's got a claim of actual Coriolis deflection at 15 degrees an hour, though, hasn't it?
Yeah, but it turns out that it doesn't really happen. So Einstein just was right.
So unless you make that disclaimer as Baldwin, which is pretty devastating, well, we don't see 15 degrees an hour of drift. But because it's Einstein, blah, 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 blah. No. The globe's claim to have 15 degrees an hour of deflection, that's Coriolis effect, to prove that we're spinning. And it's exampled by you with the stars. That's another example of claim to be Coriolis effect. Second reference frame being the inertial reference frame for the stars. and the non-inertial turning reference frame of the Earth at 15 degrees an hour, there'll be a not actual deflection claimed by the globe in the stars. Not we won't notice, because in your example, if you say we won't notice, suddenly the stars have stopped moving. That's what not notice means in that example. Not notice is they don't move anymore. The stars, that is.
Yeah, but there's a reason why we don't notice anything about
do.
the Earth
The
moving.
stars do
it's
move.
because of the vastness of the weight of Earth. It's such a large body.
No.
It bends space and time slightly, and then all things become relative. So
No. Not all things become relative. You're now arguing for how we don't notice. But that means you've just completely ignored what I've said about the stars having to stop if you're going to claim that we won't notice. Not noticing is the stars stopping.
what I'm saying is that because of the sheer weight of Earth spinning,
Heard.
we don't notice any deviation because it's like being...
I'm going to have to stop and round out the show because he's just circle jerking me right at the end of a live show just to annoy me so I look sweaty and irritated on camera. I'm not going to allow him to do it. No. Saying that the Earth's heavy and therefore won't notice isn't addressing the fact that not noticing means the stars would have to stop spinning. If you're going to claim that there's no 15 degrees an hour globe-based Coriolis effect noticeable in the stars. If we're not noticing, the stars have stopped. Anyway, with that, I'm going to say, if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams, then stay tuned as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, though, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. A huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, joined as a member, hit the thanks button and all that good stuff. Another massive thank you to today's Gilded and G+ panels for making today's live show possible. Once again, stay tuned if you're watching on either Premiering stream. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!